Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, a game the Red Raiders seemingly had no business being in, but somehow found a way to be. We're dissecting how it came to be next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be back with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, my man. Welcome back to West Texas. The Red Eye is the status for the great Chris Level, as he was on the call, of course, last night in Waco. Late tip, early start today, as we got a few things to chew on from that ball game. And we'll also check in on any potential Texas Tech football offensive line coach update before we get out of here. But, Chris, it was 79-73 going the wrong way for the good guys last night. If you watched the ball game, you understand that Warren Washington was not in the mix. And I got to tell you, I'm kind of scratching my head at the end of the night as to how Tech found a way to even be in the ball game. I'm not trying to turn this into a participation trophy conversation, but when the news is coming across for certain that Washington's not going to be on the floor, thought it would be a steep hill to climb, to say the least. Certainly was that, but there was some fight in the Red Raiders that probably made it a little bit more interesting than most expected.
Yeah, I know why they call the early morning flights or late night flights the red eye, because I'm a prime example of such, literally. But yeah, quick turnaround, man. Yeah, we just got back this morning, I guess technically, as it would be, but tough night. I think I'll just kind of bullet point this, but first, Baylor has a legit home court advantage now. I don't think that they always did at the Ferrell Center. I think that is going to prove to be a very difficult place to play. I had Baylor students just inches away from me, and saying some things that it's like they said a prayer right before the game started. They get all quiet. Everybody says the prayer and, all this stuff. And then, like, some of the things that come out of these kids' mouths right behind me, I'm like, which is real? Like, with a real Baylor, person stand up. I don't know, because these are different messages here, vastly different. Like, whoa, like, it's kind of I don't know. Okay, so there's that. I think, to your point, Cowan, I thought when you kind of get the sense that Warren's not going to play, or he's going to be very limited, because he's just all the size, length conversation that we talk about. It's not near as bad when he's in there, and he's your one true big, and he didn't play, and so you're at that point, you're vastly undersized underneath, and you're vastly, I want to say, inexperienced, although Baylor is not just experienced in the post either. They're just massively talented with Yev Misi, who's going to be a potentially first-round draft pick this next year. But I'm like you, and Grant didn't want to hear that. I just felt like that you put up a pretty big fight, man, and you had to scratch and claw. You got out rebounded. You turned it over a bit too much. You were really trying to, crack the code when there's just not a code to crack at some points on some possessions. But you had some big-time shot making. And this is a Baylor team that in the second half, I think they shot 65%. And because a lot of those were dunks, you just couldn't keep them out of the paint. Your inexperienced bigs that were playing. Robert Jennings plays a ton. Kyron Lindsey plays 12 to 13 minutes. EY got in there. You just couldn't keep them out of the lane. And It equaled a lot of high percentage shots for the Bears, but yeah, Baylor's really good, and the fact that you lose by 6, again, nobody's handing you a trophy, but there was a few times where I thought you may get run out of here, and that never happened to Grant and his team's credit, because Grant wasn't there the day before the game either. He showed up the day of the game because of battling, and he's cough drops during the game and trying to. So it's just that these guys could use a few days off. And we saw Lamar, last little roster tidbit, we saw Lamar Washington for 1 minute, and then we never saw him anymore either. So I think he's still very much battling it. So yeah, depleted, shorthanded against a top 15 team on the road at their place in a sold out building. You lose by 6. I would say that's a hell of a fight. Doesn't count for anything, but I'll tip my cap.
Yeah, really down the stretch, you thought, all right, well, are we about to see a 20-point margin? Because it got pretty wide there for a period of time, but then somehow Texas Tech was able to still find their way back into it in the final few minutes. Baylor went without a field goal for the final 3 minutes and 40 seconds, and Tech finished 4 of their final 4 from the field. So I don't know. It was tough to digest, because sometimes that just makes it even more frustrating that you're that close, but you can't quite get over the hump. But they definitely were doing some of the things that Tech had done earlier in Big 12 play and had really found success with. You mentioned the turnover number. Tech turns it over 14 times. Baylor makes more free throws than you attempt. They were 24 for 32. You were only 12 for 16. So some of those little things that have helped to row the boat for the Red Raiders, that was happening for Baylor and not for Texas Tech. But I know that a head coach is not going to want to hear about, boy, you guys really fought. Hey, I'm surprised you didn't suck worse. You know, that's not really the line that you're wanting to discuss. Or again, you don't want to turn it into some kind of participation trophy conversation by any stretch of the imagination. But this was also, Chris, not only on a night where, Warren Washington is not on the floor, but it was a night where Pop Isaacs, while he had his moments earlier in the game, I kind of thought maybe some of the emotion got to him as the game went on. It seemed like maybe trying to do a little too much, and there were some plays and some turnovers that were pretty costly. He had 4 turnovers, which is like a pretty high number for him so far this season, and that's a credit to him to this point in the season. I understand why he's doing it. I mean, Pop is the straw that stirs the drink, obviously, for Texas Tech. But again, somehow you were able to make it more interesting with Pop having the night that he had.
Yeah, I mean, this crowd was you knew when Pop touched the ball. I'll just say that. I'll leave it there. But yeah, and I'm just I don't know. I'm like shocked at some of the things that people say, but maybe I shouldn't be. So maybe shame on me for being shocked. But I think some of his turnovers you can attribute to playing with inexperienced bigs. He's trying to play the pick and roll a lot. I think he dropped off plenty of assists, but I think there's some miscommunication or trying to thread the needle with some of these, inexperienced big guys. And we're going to continue to say this because it's just remains to be true. But your quote unquote bigs are in the 6'7" range, and they had 2 legit 7-foot bigs in Misi and Ajanawa, and they're interchangeable parts. It's like they look like the same. They've got the same long arms and all that. So you're just trying to do things around the basket, and it just doesn't take much for one of those guys to get a deflection, and then it causes a turnover and all that. Same with Aziz Bandango from Cincinnati. You may tell you the wildest stat that I think is just fascinating to me. Speaking of Aziz Bandango in Cincinnati, I'm going to blow your mind here if you haven't seen this.
First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime, and you shouldn't have to sweat it out when buying tickets to your favorite events. And with Gametime, you'll never have to, because it's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you'll find killer last-minute deals, views from every seat, and their lowest price guaranteed. And right now, if you happen to be in Vegas for the big game, all users get $100 off when they buy that ticket with their code VEGAS 100. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means Game Time is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. The fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. And right now, again, all Game Time users can get $100 off of a big game ticket with our code VEGAS100. That's VEGAS 100. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app and use the code VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the game, just use our code LOCKED ON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Every team that has played Cincinnati in the Big 12 basketball so far in conference season, in their very next game, they're a combined 0 for 9. So as soon as you play Cincinnati, regardless of result, you lose your next game. That is 100% true to this point, which I don't know why. I had it pointed out to me. I'm like, that can't be true. I looked it up. I'll be damned. And it was 0 for 8 prior to last night. Now it's 0 for 9. You had just played Cincinnati. You lost your next game. Cincinnati's off this week, or I'd be like, where's the, let me like start up one of these FanDuel or whatever we do here, and let me get on some money line for the next the next team that plays Cincinnati. So yeah, but how about that? I don't know why. That's just maybe coincidence. Maybe it's just Cincinnati's athleticism and length and defense bothers you, and you just I don't know, whatever. But you've dealt with a lot of interior presence in the last couple of games and depth there, and you just are frustratingly undermanned, and especially without Warren. He's the one guy that can counter a lot of that. And at some point last night, Baylor just started kind of playing above the rim a bit, and you really had no answer other than being very perimeter oriented. But I thought Pop did a great job, and I thought Joe Toussaint really had an aggressive mindset and looked to score, which opened up his ability to distribute a bit. And again, talk about undersized. He is scratching and clawing for everything he can come up with, but you needed everything he could give you offensively.
That was a mind-blowing stat, and it's so early on in the day, too. I was planning on using my mind at some point. It's hard enough when it's not blown throughout the day, but it's really going to be a challenge for me now. That is wild and something to consider for those sharps moving forward. And, yeah, Toussaint was going to be first on the list of individual accomplishments to talk about, and, maybe none any greater than getting to the free throw line 8 times. He was 7 for 8 there. He really seemed like a determined dude and a man on a mission. So you understand with this recent stretch why that could possibly be the case. But I didn't feel like he was, pressing too much or doing anything like that. There were some things that he was allowing to come to him, but was attacking the rim and doing what he could, as you mentioned, as an undersized guy. And it was also nice to see Darion Williams make a big impact with 17 points on the board there for Texas Tech. So a couple of silver linings. We saw another nice, impactful night from Chance McMillan, who eventually winds up 3 for 6 from beyond the arc, also battling on the boards as well. We've said this many times before, whether it was for the team or for some of these individuals, Chris. I don't know. I mean, I know not everybody had their best game, but there are some of these ball games where you look at some of these pieces and think, all right, how much more is there to get out of them? You kind of feel like you're emptying the bucket even in some of these losses.
I said that to a few people before the game yesterday. And you and I have talked about it some as well. Like I think we've had this conversation mostly about Joe Toussaint because I think some of these other pieces certainly qualify for this statement too. But some of these guys are giving you a lot. And we maybe at some points are asking for more, and maybe they're not capable of giving you too much more than what they're, you always want to be the best version of yourself and like progress and grow and all these things. But at some point, maybe, on some nights it's like, man, this is just who this player is. like you're asking them to do more than they're capable of or whatever. And maybe that's not fair, but that's the reality of it. But I thought on a night like this, I thought without Warren, I thought Darian Williams scored more, looked more to hunt his shot. Joe Toussaint did. And like you desperately needed it. And here's the thing, they were high percentage shots because you weren't going to get a chance to put back a miss because you just were getting kind of worked on the glass and things like that. Rebounding was a struggle, and it's going to continue to be, and so you just have to, if you shoot it well, you kind of negate a lot of that. So, but I thought D5 and Joe Toussaint really had good games, and you desperately needed it. And to Joe's credit, he's had a rough little patch here. And I thought that it was 18-6 for him, I think. It was, I just thought, and he does foul out for back-to-back games, but it's just, I didn't agree with the call that got him fouled out on. I was, without sounding corny, you just kind of are proud of a kid like that for keep pushing through and all that, and not giving in to the moment when it's like, it's been rough for him, like I said, and you can kind of go into a funk and start feeling sorry for yourself or whatever. And that's not what we saw. We saw Joe battle his rear end off.
Yeah, that doesn't strike me as a team or a program under Grant McCasland that'll spend a whole lot of time in the land of self-pity. So hopefully that can continue to be the case, because you got to get right back up as you come back home to take on Central Florida. I guess we can finally mention this name at this point in the season. I've never seen a fan base, and it's just based on what I hear from viewers or listeners in the YouTube comments, more interested in a guy that does not play. Like we don't play either, but we don't get as many questions about us. Kyron Lindsey is someone that is asked about over and over and over and over again. I don't know if it's just like the Lindsey family all in the YouTube comments, like, hey, talk about this guy and why he's not getting on the floor. I don't know what the answer has been up to this point. I typically have very little interest in those who are not getting out of the warm-up shirts, but those out there do, those Red Raider fans out there do, that are speaking to us in the YouTube comments. He gets on the floor, has some impactful minutes. What's his story been like so far, and is there any breakthrough that you see, or is it, again, just a result of really having to dig into the bench?
I get why people have asked. He's kind of a mystery. At some point, he was fairly highly recruited with a fairly high prospect ranking and all that. He transferred here from Georgia. I think that we kind of would have thought a year ago that, okay, here we go, and he played as a true freshman at Georgia, and so I get the questions, and then we sit here and talk about, you've lost Devin Cambridge for the year, and then you're without, you're undersized and all those things. I think Kyron is very much a work in progress. I think that he's going to have to, because I think Kyron has always kind of gotten away with playing and being just more athletic than everybody's been on the floor with in high school and things like that. I think Grant has a much higher expectation, and that's why EY, same. It's no different. And it's not fair to like even call Kyron a sophomore. I mean, you're going to have to call him that, but it's like last year for him was a blur, and then he comes in and it's a whole brand new staff. And so he's twitchy. He's got a live body. But like you look at it last night, he commits 4 personal fouls in 12 minutes, and he didn't back down. I think you kind of like to see the look in his eye a little bit, and that he wanted to mix it up. Now you have to learn to play without fouling and understand, and then it's like they had told everybody on the team, don't let Misi go right, make him go left. You want to weak him. Grant talked about this after the game, the big fella, and Kyron kind of is in a one-on-one situation, and Misi just kind of jab steps him left, and guess where he's going? Right, bring that ball back, tomahawk dunk, crowd goes nuts, look out, you're on a poster. It was just like, but it's the nuances of the scouting report and being locked in and all that it's a lot to ask him this time of year. But I don't know what his big picture future is, to be honest. I think he's got to get a lot, at least the way that I view it, that Grant wants him to get a lot better on the defensive end and in general. And I think he's not going to say anything negative about Kyron Lindsey or EY. I think he likes the way those guys are working. It's just when you get dropped when they drop you feet first in the grease, man, it's a different level of expectation and margin for error and all those things if you want to really earn minutes, especially in this league. In spot duty, though, last night, I thought, considering everything, I thought they did a good job because, like, Jennings and Lindsey gave you not a whole lot of point production, about 5 boards, and I think they committed like 8 personal fouls between them. I mean that's just that was the Warren Washington replacement right there, but. So I'm kind of talking in circles a little bit about Kyron Lindsey because it still remains a question mark, but I think you see some potential, but you also see like, okay, you got to get better at a variety of things here to earn major minutes, and it's just not there yet.
Okay, we'll get back to hoops before the week is done as we return back to the LBK for Red Raiders and Citronauts of Central Florida. But as for now, Chris, let's wrap up our conversation on a football front. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and happy Super Bowl week to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And FanDuel has more ways than you can count for you to end this season with a dub, or maybe 2 or 3 or 4, not 5, not 6. Not only can you bet on who's going to win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which player will score the first touchdown, how many points are going to be scored, and so much more. National anthem action? That do anything for you? Check it out at FanDuel.com. New customers also joining today, and you're going to get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. All you got to do, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We all know what the news was earlier in the week. Stephen Hamby out as the Texas Tech offensive line coach. I know only a few hours, a couple days have passed since we had that conversation. But by the same token, as we also had within that conversation, a mention of, some previous hires or replacements moving at the speed of light, happening very quickly. Not that that would be any guarantee here, but what have you heard up to this point? Is there anything even to update as far as maybe names emerging or profiles of potential candidates emerging?
Yeah, I still think this was so sudden for the most part. I'm not going to be like, there's 2 ways to view this, or that I'm going to kind of, as far as timetable goes. I think the way Joey operates, he's pretty particular on like staff as far as fit. And I think if they had a no-brainer, candidate, we would be hearing about it rather quickly, kind of like the Juice filling in for Emmett. That was just a no-brainer, normal, perfect fit. Okay, in one or out, Emmett goes, and in comes Juice, and it fit like a glove rather quickly. This is a massive hire, man, and I don't know if they want to move, so quick. I think there'll be a variety of people involved in like kind of who is hired here. It is of vital importance. And here's the other thing too. While that may take a bit of a process, I mean, the new offensive line coach needs to be here yesterday. You know what I mean? And so, but yet you do need to ensure it's the right, because I told you that like the other night we were talking, there's so many things to consider on fit here. How do you fit with the rest of the staff? How do you fit with Joey? Maybe most importantly, how do you fit with Zach and what he was doing on offense? but how do you fit with the pieces that are here with this offensive lineman? Because, I mean, heck, Coach Hamby was going to have to figure out what this group is because they're all new. You know, I mean, you could make the argument that 4 out of your 5 guys, your potential starters, were going to be brand new players, or 3 out of 5. Either way, it's a whole new group. So I think that part and they're probably down the road a bit, sitting there now that we're talking on options and candidates and fit and all that. I would expect something to happen fairly soon, but I can't tell you if fairly means next 24 hours or the next 2 weeks. I think, but you have to. This is a big one, man. And again, we could talk. I'll just keep saying this. We could talk about a whole bunch of stuff about your football team, keeping your quarterback healthy. Barron got to take the next step. How good your linebackers are, how good some of these new receivers you have in there, Micah Hudson, Josh Kelly, on and on it goes. But none of it matters, man, if you can't protect and handle your business up front. It just doesn't, and that's the scary thing right now. So, and as time goes by, we'll maybe get into why we are here and why a change was made, but it's still very, very fresh. But again, you've got to go make something happen here rather quickly.
Do you have any sense of, we talked about the monetary component a couple of days ago. 320,000 is where Stephen Hamby was. I don't know if that was bottom 3, bottom 4, something like that in the Big 12 conference, nowhere near the top. Of course, at that time, Texas is still in the conference. So the top is going to be lofty. I think like 1.25 or something like that is what we were talking about for the Longhorn offensive line coach. Do you have any sense that there's like some determination that we're going to invest more, or there's going to be a significant increase for the next guy? It's not like you go throw a lot more at the next guy just because he's the next guy. I mean, if he's not, a candidate that would justify that kind of thing, I don't think we're necessarily expecting that. But do you have any feel for wanting about them wanting to invest more, or maybe have a guy in a different kind of category salary wise?
Well, you're not. This is, as I mentioned, that this is going to cost some money here. I don't envision you wanting to go like the cheap route, which would be like, let's take a chance on somebody younger and all that. My guess is you're going to go get either an experienced and or acting offensive line coach right now, and experience costs money. And I could envision a scenario to where you end up ultimately having to pay twice as much or close to it compared to what you were just paying Stephen Hamby. I think, Hamby was one of the lowest or lower paid offensive line coaches in the Power 5. I think, though, that based on experience level, I think that everybody, like, it didn't stick out like a sore thumb from, he hadn't done it a long time. He obviously graduated from here and all those things. But if you go, get somebody that's got some serious experience and been doing it a long time, or that's an acting offensive line coach right now, you're the one that has the want. They could all just more than likely just sit tight where they're at. There is a candidate named Coach Yenser, who was at Kentucky, that I think is a free agent, if you will. I think Mark Stoops tried to upgrade that spot by hiring away Nick Saban's old offensive line coach at Alabama. And so I think you bring in this gentleman and tell Coach Yenser at Kentucky, hey, we're going to go a different route. And so, but he's somebody that's not an acting one that I think could be a candidate. He's got some ties to Kenny Perry when they were at Kansas and some other folks, but who knows, man? It's still very bizarre that here it is, on the second signing day of February the 7th, and you're looking for an O-line coach, and you've got some of your signees that aren't even on campus yet that I think are like, what? like what, like Ellis Davis, for example. But that's why Joey. But you had to get this one right, man. This is a massive hire here.
We'll be getting into any further updates available as the week rolls along, of course. And as I mentioned, we'll get back to hoops before it's done to get you set for the next home ball game for Grant McCaslin and the Red Raiders as UCF comes to town. Chris, appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoyed it, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Yeah, 3 out of your next 4 games from basketball standpoint at home, which doesn't displease me at all. I like the old home building. So, hey, man, keep hope alive, everybody. Enjoy your Wednesday. Guns up, keep hope alive. It still is, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, I'm just sad that we can't promise you another trip to Waco. I know you're going to be down in the mouth about that. You got that one out of the way already. Saturday, Satan. Sunday, Saint. All right, for Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Thanks for being out there, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.